scenario. We got the nice things, all the parts, including my dash. Beautiful car, just totally shredded apart right now. Looking real nice with all the wiring we're trying to figure out. But basically no instructions, so woo! Whatever. Got all the bolts in, torqued to like 40, whatever. Torqued them in, got the new mount on, and that turns out on the other side of this whole world, you use your old mount off your driver's side, bolt it up. Don't forget the 2 washers up there because we forgot them. Bolt it up, put this on, use that. We
care what they say, we will be here all day. We'll stay here till it's over, till the world's out of sight. We will stand, we will fight. It's not over till it's over.
got the wiring, guys. Alright, so here's a 1.6 16 valve swap from Lightning Conversions. So basically, this is just describing how we all did it. So there's a vent line here that off this motor that runs around over here to your brake booster, all the way up to here, which that confused us. And all we had to do with a magneto was for the new motor, just 2 self-tappers in the firewall and just ran the cable down here. As you can tell, we have cut up the entire old wiring harness and made it very simplistic and didn't leave any extra wires in it, which just requires you taking apart the entire wiring harness. So then we have our air filter here, which isn't the stock one, but it's the one that came with the motor. So we didn't want any water splashing up into it, so we built this guard that goes around. It's done a fantastic job. And then another issue is the motor mounts, that the stock 1.6 motor mounts down here. So what we have is a Dodge 318, I believe, motor mounts. They're meant for a V8, and those work pretty good at dropping the motor and being able to rotate it side to side in the car. But you still have some clearancing issues on your hood, because we learned that the hard way. This hose right here is rubbing up there. And you ever had the problem when there's a little stream just shooting out one of your little lines?
Is that hot?
I don't know, I didn't touch it. A little rub here, and I think over here. But those two don't matter, but this is on a radiator coolant line. It's actually a radiator line. I don't know why it's up here on the motor, but for some reason they put it there. So that's a bummer. And if you're ever wondering if you can use your stock Samurai radiator, yes you can. As you can see right here, it fits. All the hoses hook up. The only problem you'll run into is the fan shroud. You'll have to trim it. I haven't trimmed mine yet, but you'll need to trim it. And also, if you just put the motor in, put a gap in between these, because after you start, put a gap in between the fan, because after you start bouncing around with the old motor, especially with the stock motor mounts, the fan will actually come and hit your brand new radiator you just put in the car, and you're out $100. So that's kind of annoying. So over here we have all my winch stuff on this custom battery tray we built that has self-tappers here and 2 under the battery. And then this is, well, technically a little dangerous because these are all the hot wires. So this is the constant hot that goes to the computer. Everything was labeled in the kit. And then this is a ground which goes to the alternator. So, well, not ground, but hot wire. So this is all the hots, and then the grounds just go down there and fault out. Another little problem we kept having was the starter purple wire kept popping off, so you couldn't start the car. So a couple of little problems like that. And then mainly there used to be an oil catch can. I don't know what it was for. You don't need that in this motor swap. Also, on top of that, here's your hookups for your heat and stuff. I haven't put heat in the car again, so all you do is just tee off that line, push it back into there, and take it back. So now you might be wondering, where's the computer for all this? The computer is in a giant bundle of yellow wires. I can't show you it because I built this simple plate here to cover everything up. Also, when you remove your AC out of the car, you have a hole in your firewall, so you have to cover up the holes or else your passengers kind of get a little cranky. So with all that, that's basically all we had to do for the motor. Also, you'll have to change out your alternator hookup if somebody's ever messed with it, because some are single pin, these are 3, but you only use 2 of them, I'm pretty sure. So that's pretty much all the stuff we did in the engine bay. Oh, except the exhaust here. So the exhaust is actually a very big problem. You see how close it is? There's a frame right next to it that it will bump into unless you build a custom exhaust bracket, which there are 2 C's here, it's hard to show, on each side where we rotated the bracket 90 degrees of the frame to try to get clearance to this frame because it would constantly hit on the frame. That's a big concern for a lot of people, and it should be, because that was decently challenging to make. So just know, if you do the swap, you're going to be fighting this exhaust on your frame, unless you buy the custom adjustable motor mounts, which I didn't. I just bought some cheap V8 motor mounts and built an exhaust rotating bracket, which has worked beautifully with it, because as you can see down here, it just rotates the exhaust and got it right off the frame. So that's worked amazingly well. And then that brings us to the dash, which some of these old gauges were messed up, so I wired up some new ones, which here's my temp and RPM, which has worked beautifully with the new motor, because my old motor did not have a RPM gauge, which is, with the kit, it was super simple. It said, I think, tachometer hookup, so you just hook up 1 green wire from this gauge and just hook it up to the ECU of the car, and then plug in power to the gauge. So that's pretty much the motor swap in entirety, except the fuel pump, which is another thing. Ours was not an in-tank fuel pump. Ours was a barrel. So we built this bracket that has 2 self-tappers there, and it bolts in up there. And it also has a pin that goes into that hole. So we have it coming from the gas tank out into the fuel filter, so that we're not running any crap through our fuel pump, all the way around into the fuel pump, all the way back, runs all the way down into your actual main gas line. So that was a big concern, is fuel pump and how to wire it and route it all. So that's how we dealt with that problem, and it's worked out very good. And then you just run your wires all the way up over there. I did get a custom exhaust built for the car, because my old exhaust had a couple issues. So that was pretty simple, just like $250 at exhaust shop. Just welded one up custom, has tons of clearance under the skid plate now. So I'd recommend just expecting to do your exhaust too after you do all these upgrades and the new motor in it. And if you're wondering about what kind of top speed I can get out of the car right now, 82 to 85. So the motor does pretty good. So that's about how this motor swap's gone. This is all the stuff that's on the motor. If you're doing one and you're wondering what you can get rid of off your old motor, you can take out a lot of wires. Let me just build a little tabby there. Also, the old wiring harness used to go through here along with the motor ECU. We put all that into here because there's tons of extra wires with the new motor. So I just cut a new hole, cut a piece of rubber, and just built a new hole in the firewall, which helps us. I think the computer is bolted right here. That's actually one of the bolts that holds the computer plate on. And that's bolted to the firewall with all the wires in that panel underneath. So that's how that's done. And then this is just a vent line if anybody's curious. So yeah, you can remove a lot of wires from your motor and get it cleaned up a lot more than what you think.